it. Get the mind going. Okay, for the recording, welcome back. We are Death in the End of Death Practice Module Group. It is November 9, 2023. Let's gather our minds here as we usually do. Please bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now bring to mind that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom. See them there with you. They're gazing at you with their unconditional love for you, smiling at you with their holy great compassion, their wisdom radiating from them, that beautiful golden glow encompassing you in its light. And then we hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Think about how much you would like to be able to help them. And recognize how the worldly ways we try fall short. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could also help them in some deep and ultimate way, a way through which they would go on to stop their distress forever? We're learning that that is possible. And so I invite you to let your wish grow into a longing. Maybe into an intention. and maybe even into a determination if you feel ready. Then turn your mind back to that precious holy being. We know that they know what we need to know, what we need to learn yet, what we need to do yet, to become one who can help this other in this deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please teach us that. And they are so happy that we've asked. Of course, they agree. Our gratitude arises. We want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of the perfect world they are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands, and we offer it to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us, using our refuge prayer. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with a blanket of flowers. The great mountain, 4 lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this practice and the rest, may I reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this practice and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this practice and the rest, may all beings reach their total awakening for the benefit of every other. Okay, so let's review. Last class, we had left the forest. The forest represents samsara. We were stuck in samsara with that heavy load, our backpack, representing our possessions, our relationships, our habit patterns, our belief systems, really representing everything about ourselves and our lives within samsara. And as we stepped out into the clearing, like by some magic, we got in a place where we could get a glimpse. Whereas up until then, we were just in the dark, right? Scratched up, struggling. And as we're in that clearing, hot and tired and hungry and thirsty, we see in the distance the table with food and drink and all the people. And it's easy to feel that, whoa, I want what's there, because that's where my comfort's going to come from. And so we're attracted to the stuff on the table, but in getting to the table, we have to struggle against all these others who are struggling to get to the table. And thereafter, this stuff on our backpack, you can feel it, like struggling to get on a crowded bus and you're almost late for work. That feeling, it's like, and that whole piece, coming out of the forest, seeing the table, struggling against others to get what's there, that all represents the disadvantages of not growing a keen, proper death awareness practice. It represents the struggles of staying within a samsaric being in a samsaric world with samsaric habits, meaning just continuing to be, grubby little selfish beings, trying to get what we want and avoid what we don't want. Then we had that scene where it's like something's wrong with this picture, and we break out of the crowd and we turn in, we see the bridge over the moat, and that really represents the awakening of our renunciation. Just that thought, even if it's fleeting, there's just something wrong here, and it's enough for us to go searching, looking, the willingness to find something new starts this process. And in this practice, it takes us right to the moat. And to step onto that bridge over the moat represents this growing level of renunciation that we learned about in the Lamrim practice module, and we'll learn more and more about as we continue our studies, as our own seeds shift, what we mean by renunciation shifts more and more deeply or broadly, or not quite sure how to describe that. So on the bridge, we got to the apex of the bridge and we stopped and had the thought, this stuff in my backpack, it's just burdened me. It's keeping me tied to my old way of life, my old habits. And our task during the week was to just think about, what are those things in the backpack? Hanging off it, overflowing. Just to identify some of them. And then of the ones we identified, are there already a few that you can see are really not your interest so much anymore, and not really benefiting you anymore, and so not really benefiting the others that they seem to have benefited before? I mean, you don't need to share, but just think, did you recognize that there were some things? Maybe it was just the extra 50 pairs of shoes. Okay, I only need 3. Give the rest away. Something. It maybe seems like trivial at this point, but it's something. And so the idea of going across the bridge and pausing there and reaching into that backpack, pulling out something. This is my magazine subscription. Like, do we even have those anymore? Wink. Good riddance. This is, I don't know, that particular scrolling that I always check, and it doesn't inspire me anymore, but I still do it. Chuck. Symbolically, finding things that hold us back from this shift that we're just getting a glimpse of what we can become. So yeah, it would be wonderful if we could just take that whole backpack and chuck the whole thing over. But don't do that, because 2 minutes later, there'd be something in the backpack that you would regret having just chucked over. So don't push. I mean, push, urge, be brave, but not too fast, because too fast will lead to regret. It will lead to a break in our practice. Rather, prepare ourselves well. And then when the time comes, the thing will just leave us. Which, if we're not prepared yet for the thing to leave us, we get all upset. If we've already prepared ourselves and we just haven't figured out how to get rid of it or how to stop it, and now it leaves us, thank you, right? That just made my life easier. So it's really attitude shift, but that attitude shift is promoted if we really physically find things that it's time to give these away. So I encourage you to find a few things, right, no matter how trivial, and get them somewhere else so they're not part of your backpack burden anymore. And just doing that to begin with will reinforce this whole process of the willingness to change, the willingness to become the change that we say we want to do, but something in us is going, nah, 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 nah. So spend some time on that bridge in your meditations if you're doing this practice on a regular basis. Don't be in a big hurry. And that bridge and throwing off the stuff is representing the benefits of a proper death awareness practice. It allows us to see the benefits of preparing ourselves for this change. Then by the end of the bridge, there was that gauntlet of scary guys, remember? And they represent the death awareness practice that we're not doing. They represent the fear and the pain and the disorientation that comes out of ordinary death. And there's no need to practice that. We've done it many times before. It will come naturally. And yet, as we're looking down the bridge towards those guys, we remember, well, that is not the kind of death awareness practice I'm doing. I'm doing a death awareness practice that changes that whole scene. And so our confidence is such that we just shoot right by those scary guys, and they can't react fast enough to get us. And we find ourselves in the meadow, light, supple, clean, refreshed, the backpack's gone, silken clothing, dancing towards the building. And it represents the proper death awareness practice that we're going to do, and how it leaves us feeling confident and unencumbered and eager and fresh and uplifted. That's the kind of death awareness practice we're doing. So the forest and the clearing is like preliminaries. Breaking free from the table is our renunciation. And part of the renunciation is recognizing if I stay in that old scene, then I am just going to end up going through being dead, and then who knows what comes next. And so our renunciation grows. We're getting onto the bridge, recognizing what death meditation is not about, recognizing what it is about, what the one we're not going to do, and the one that we are going to do. And we ended up at the building's eastern door that was beautiful golden yellow. And we were standing there looking back. So now this building, we said that it surrounds it has a courtyard in its center. And in the courtyard is our fully enlightened being. In the Lamrim practice module, we said they're already there. They're already there waiting for you. It's like, I'm not so sure about that. But by the time you get all the way through the building to the courtyard, they will be there because you'll be there. And going through this building represents all the stages of the path from suffering human in the forest to fully enlightened being in the courtyard. This course does not get us all the way to the courtyard. It will meet up with the Lamrim practice module, and then you weave yourself through those rooms, and it shows you the way to the courtyard. So we're only going to get partway there from this one. But in the Lamrim practice module, we never actually entered the building. We entered it from the courtyard and we went backward. So here's where we enter this building, through this golden yellow door, the eastern entry to this beautiful building. And this building, the series of rooms we're going to learn about, represent the three principles of a helpful death awareness practice. And each of those three principles has three reasonings within them to help us investigate the truth of the principle. So each of these rooms within the building represents these principles and reasonings. And there'll be things inside the rooms to help trigger your reasoning process as you explore the meaning of these different principles and reasonings, so that you can gain your own sense of truth about it. And each one builds on the next, and we'll learn it through the course of this training. So we'll have the whole thing in this visualization practice through which you remember the outline. And then you get to explore it if it speaks to you. So let me give you the three principles. And just for fun, I'll give you the Tibetan in order to keep the language alive. Here are the three principles. Shiwa Nyepa, Yepar Chiwar Sampa, and Namchi Nye Mepe Sampa. So Chiwa Nyepa means death certain. The words, just death certain, which we all go, yeah, I know. But say these words instead. My death is certain. Oh, that holds a bit more power than just death is certain. Right? So really, this first principle of death awareness is my death is certain. And we'll have three reasonings to help us decide whether we believe that or not. The second one, Tamchenye, Nye Parchiwa Sampa, means the time of death uncertain. Which, yeah, we get that. That's why we get away with saying death is certain, yeah. So what? Because the time of our death is uncertain. And so we go, not for a long time, I'm sure. Thank you very much. But say it this way. My death is certain, and the time of my death is uncertain. That feels a little more powerful to me, even now, when I know the punchline. My death is certain. The time of my death is uncertain. We'll talk about how to prove that to ourselves, right? We all know it, but we try to wiggle out of it. Then Namchi ne Mepe Sampa means at death time, only, I don't know how the words actually play. At death time, the only thing that helps is Dharma. At the time of my death, the only thing that can help me is the Dharma. And that means a lot. That's the meaning of that is different than what the actual words say. So we'll get there. So each of these three has three more reasonings that I don't have the Tibetan for. And we'll learn them as we go. Right? So the three are, my death is certain. The time of my death is uncertain. And at the time of my death, the only thing that can help me is the Dharma, meaning my spiritual life. So I had mentioned before that the way to use this as a meditation practice was to combine the visualization of the holy object, thinking about their qualities. I think I remember talking about that. And then doing an analysis of them and then fixating on your conclusion. In the way we would use this practice is that we would first do what's called a review meditation, which means for the 5 minutes that you're doing your death meditation practice, the first minute, you talk through what you've learned about it so far. Okay, samsara sucks. Renunciation's got to kick in. Renunciation's going to require some change. The proper death meditation's not the scary one. It's the one that's going to leave me, happy and free. The first principle is my death is certain. Egads. What does that mean? Right? And you just, like you've memorized the outline, go as far as you've got it. Do it forwards, do it backwards. Do it forwards, do it backwards. Then take one of those principles or reasonings, and for your second minute or minute and a half, you do a reasoning, clear thinking about that topic. Do I believe my death is certain? How do I live according to that? Well, I'm really careful crossing the street because I know I could fall down and get hit by a car. But there are other ways that I'm not so careful. And does that mean, right? We just analyze. And when you come to a conclusion for which you get this sense of, oh, like I get that a little deeper now. Park on that feeling of the conclusion. And that's called fixation meditation. So your reasoning meditation, your qigong, will find a moment or three where you're fixing on your aha. And then you'll lose it. And you go back to the reasoning to get it back. And then park on the conclusion with fixation. Okay, and so you're doing all three kinds of meditation in one session. You're spending more time on the thinking part because we can't hold the fixation very long. But our effort to hold it and then repeatedly return to it is the seeds that we want to plant that will grow into a meditation in which our fixation gets stronger and stronger. Okay. So the first reasoning to check whether or not we truly believe and live by the first principle, which is my death is certain. The scripture says the Lord of death is unstoppable. So why is it true that my death is certain? Number one, because the Lord of death is unstoppable. And what's meant by that is that when the time of our death arrives, there is nothing and nobody that can stop it. And, you know, our minds say, that's not true, because my uncle so-and-so was having a heart attack and he got to the ER in time and they gave him that aspirin and TPA and they stopped his heart attack and they saved his life. So his time of death was not unstoppable. He was dying and then he didn't. So see, it's not true. And when we come to that kind of conclusion, we automatically think, and so that will happen to me too, right? Of course, when I get close to death, I'll get to there and they'll fix me too. But understanding karma and emptiness, we check more deeply into that experience of my Uncle Sam. Life, our life itself is empty of its nature in it, from it. Our life is a projection of our minds, forced results of causes made by how we acted, spoke, and thought towards others. When we experience ourselves die, that too is a projection of our mind. And it's really hard to hold that because we hear projection of our mind And we think there's some mind shooting this projection out that's separate from it. So, these really need to be worked with to understand more clearly what we mean. Dead or alive, it's projections happening. Geshe-la would use the term perception and projection interchangeably. And he was doing it on purpose to sort of shake us up, because we're pretty comfortable with, my perceptions, I'm having perceptions. And we don't think of those perceptions as being projected. We think of that's just how we experience things, we perceive them. But as we learn more and more, of course, ultimately, any perception is projected, any experience is projections, because there's nothing we can experience that's not projections. But it's useful to slide between those two words to help us loosen our grasp on perception, meaning something out there that I perceive that includes it in it, my perception. Right? So I'm going to do the same thing intentionally, kind of slide between those two words. But I'm telling you now, what I always mean by it is projected, meaning ripening results of our own past deeds. And if I ever use perception in a way different than that, I will tell you. I'm using it in the old way. Okay. So when our karma for this life wears out, ripenings still happen. But karma for life wears out, karma for something else is ripening. Karma for death ripens the instant the karma for this life all wears out. It's like, so some of us have been working with Arya Nagarjuna in this mutually exclusive thing. Like life and death are mutually exclusive. They don't overlap, even for an instant, because they're opposites. Or this, life or dead. And it's like, no, but we die slowly, most of us. It's like, well, we deteriorate slowly, but dead is dead, right? And no more life. No more this life. Not no more life at all, but no more human life, presumably, if we're talking about human, but whatever the life is that is being dead. Look at those purple hands. That death is also not self-existent. So although I just said the instant your life karma wears out, you're dead, it's you're dead because your dead being dead karma ripens. There's no other way for that to happen. To hold to death as a self-existent thing prevents us from this kind of death awareness that empowers us instead of encumbering us. Is that a word? Encumbering, holding us back. Geshe-la explained, as long as we have the karma to see our purple hands moving, we have the karma to see ourselves alive. And at some point, we no longer have the karma to see our purple hands moving. And no matter how much we might still want them to move, although I don't think you have that thought in death, they won't. Because if we don't have the karma for a functioning body, we don't have a functioning body. If we don't have the karma ripening to have a live body, we don't have a live body. The karma to have live bodies, human bodies, are karmas that are called dirty good karma. It is extraordinarily good. Yeah, Jam was having purple hands a little while ago. That, sorry. To have the projections being human is extraordinary goodness, results of extraordinary goodness. To see ourselves as a samsaric human, right, a suffering human being, an ignorant human being, is because those extraordinary kindnesses that we did to get here were done without an understanding of emptiness. So yes, they were extraordinary kindnesses, but there were missing the little piece of the deeds, the perception of doing the deeds that would have made that kindness ripen us into a Tara or a Chanrazi or a Kali Shantim or a whatever, right? A deity, not a worldly deity, but a fully enlightened being, is made through the accumulation of merit, good deeds done with an understanding of emptiness. Technically, good deeds done with a perception of emptiness, even if it's not direct at the moment, which of course it couldn't be. So we're riding upon lots of dirty good karma. And don't take that wrongly. We should be happy to have dirty good karma that makes us human, because we could be, gnat, worm, bug, hell being, and theoretically could yet be. And we're using up this extraordinarily powerful goodness moment by moment, which means it's gonna wear out. Dirty good karma, what's meant by dirty is that it wears out. So that's why death is inevitable, because our goodness for this life, there's only so much of it, and we don't know when, right? That's next class. We don't know how much we have yet. We understand karma well enough, I believe, that once a karmic seed has ripened, like it's hard cement. Until it's ripened, it's still influenceable. But once ripened, it's done. It's done its thing. And our response to it, our reaction or response to it, is planting new seeds. So if the doctor stops our heart attack, our karma for life was not wearing out. Our karma to have a heart attack stopped was ripening. right? We didn't know that until the heart attack got stopped. But it's not like death was ripening and then somebody interfered and changed it. Death wasn't ripening until it is hard cement. So once our karmas for this life run out, our karma for death ripens, and nothing can be done. No Buddha can interfere and change a dead karma ripened. No Buddha can turn it backwards. And if Buddhas can't turn it backwards, then neither can anybody else. All the time we spend taking vitamins, finding the best cosmetic for my skin, doing the right exercise, eating the right vegetables. We're just aging as we do that. We do those things for other reasons. But if we think our yoga is going to make us live longer, we'll be sorely disappointed. So, what's the proof that nobody can stop our death when we're headed to it? And Geshe-la says the proof is that people die. And I don't know, I just learned today, somebody I knew, I didn't know him very well, but I knew had died last week, and somebody else's wife who I knew fairly well had died last week. And, I live in a community where most of us are, not me, but 80s and above, but it doesn't make it hurt any less, for somebody that you were involved in on a regular basis, for him to lose his wife, when he was expected to be the one to die first. That's what the surprise in this particular couple. He's living on borrowed time and she's the one that drops dead. So, if a Buddha is totally compassionate and a Buddha is omniscient, and they could do something, they would stop our death. They would stop our headaches. They would stop our wrinkles. They would stop any kind of suffering. And they don't, right? Duh. But that either means they can't, or they can and they don't want to. So can a Buddha be omniscient and all-powerful and me still suffer? No. Because if they're omniscient and they're all-powerful, they would have to not care, to not do something. And how do we know that that scenario is impossible? Not just, no, they wouldn't do that, but impossible. What do we know about what makes omniscience? Do you remember?
Removing the obstacles.
Yeah, the obstacles to
Omniscience.
Omniscience, right? So the subtle obstacles to omniscience being removed, and they have to all be removed, which means there's a component of the compassion for all beings and all their suffering that is the necessary piece that allows us to remove, all those subtle obstacles to omniscience. It requires compassion for all, ALL, big capital letters, to even reach omniscience. So if a being is omniscient, it's because they have this whopping compassion, which means if they could fix our problems, they would, but so they must not be able to. So what good is being a Buddha if you can't help anybody? Tell me, somebody.
Because they're supposed to teach us.
Yeah, so why are we going to know what to teach? Because we're omniscient. How'd we get to be omniscient? Because we wanted to be able to help everybody in that deep, ultimate way. It's a beautiful upward spiral. Yeah. And then we also had to do it ourselves, which is a really big selling point for a teacher, is if they had to go through it themselves. Because that means they know how hard it was. They know how lousy samsara is, and they know what hard work it is to change. Okay, so the point being that a Buddha can't stop our death. Even standing by our bedside, holding our hand, praying for us, they can influence our mind. They can help guide our mind. But even that, only if I have the seeds, right? Okay. Yes, Lisa.
But then why is it that they, I mean, if they cannot stop it, they can still kind of take us in another path so we don't get to death? Or let's say maybe when you age naturally, let's call it like that, then it seems to be someone is kind of helping you not to die, no? But what about all those living beings or babies or I don't know who just die or get shot or it feels a bit like, well, where was Buddhas? Where were they in those moments? Why they didn't help those people? And I know it comes from the karma of those people, but then what is the help of the Buddhas and the omniscience if they cannot help everybody, at least to guide them through another path?
Right,
You know what I
right.
mean?
Yeah. And so can we really say that there was no Buddha there with or for that child who gets shot? No,
No,
we don't know.
or at least me.
Right. We don't know what the child's seeing or experiencing, which this really isn't helpful for someone who doesn't already know karma and emptiness well. But we don't know what that child's experience was. And a Buddha in their compassion would be right there with them to help and guide. But that Buddha can't stop the speeding bullet. That child's karma for life ended. So could we say they were born with only 6 years worth of karma for life? You could say that, although it's not self-existently that way. No, we learned somewhere along the line, we learned that karma can ripen in 3 times. Do you remember that one? It seemed like, so what? But we can do karma in this life that ripens some lifetime in the future. We can do karma in this life that will ripen in the very next lifetime. And we can do karma in this life that will in fact ripen within this lifetime. And that's the purpose of the Diamond Way practice, is to learn the sneaky ways to make our karma in such a way that it ripens in this lifetime. And because life and death are not self-existent, those karmas that we learn to make in this more powerful way ripen within what we call this lifetime, and do seem to function to stop our death. But it just it doesn't, I don't mean just, what it does is transform our very being and all our seeds, so that what would have been called the end of seeds for this life, and so the seeds of death, is called something different, is experienced differently. The projections are different. Our projections are not what they are until they ripen. So because they're not self-existent, it is true for a samsaric being, my life is certain. But because it's not self-existent, it's changeable. It's certain and it's changeable. But not in the moment of the ripening. Even tantric seeds, when they ripen, they've ripened and they are cement. So my death is certain. Why? Because the Lord of Death is unstoppable. When my seeds for this life wear out, my seeds for dead ripen. And dead seeds ripened are hard cement. And we're on to something else. Better, worse, in between. We'll learn a bit. Yes, Natalia.
Okay, sorry to interrupt, but you said that even when if Buddha appears, when the Lord of Death is there, I will still die. But isn't Buddha only when somebody is Buddha, they only see people not suffering, so the people are not dying?
They have no suffering themselves. If they can't see my suffering, I'm in trouble. So Buddhas do see me suffer. And it twists their compassionate heart because they see a me that's beyond that suffering already. Yeah.
Can we say that they are like the parents with their kids, that sometimes you can just watch them and let them hit their head in the bicycle, or a teenager to rebel and go to the opposite way, and just wait for them to come back and look what you said in the beginning,
Right.
It was the correct path. And
Right.
it's not because you don't want to help them, it's because you are just guiding them.
Right. You really can't interfere.
I thought the Buddha is able to, that's why we try to become Buddha, so that we can save everybody from suffering.
Right. And the way you're going to do that is you're going to teach them how to stop making suffering themselves. You're not going to be able to reach into them and go, I will suck your migraines out. We pretend we can. That's what Tonglen's about. But we won't ever be able to actually do it. Well, what good is Tonglen then?
So the only thing they can do is teach, not do the medicine Buddha that we learn their prayers and their promises, they can take this and that suffering. It's not that. It's just they only can teach.
Right. They can show by example. They can teach like this. They can, give you a really lousy experience to get you to wake up. Some do that. But they can't make you do anything. They can't take anything away.
Even if I call on them and I do the mantras, they cannot do anything.
Yes and no, right? That's why Geshe Michael was teaching Arya Nagarjuna. It's not that medicine Buddha prayers don't do anything. They don't do anything from their side, in them, from them. The way they help us is if we use them in order to change what we see, change our seeds. And they don't work because they don't work by doing it. They work because we do it. It's a really slippery thing. It's okay to believe that saying the prayers will do what the prayers say. But to really understand why doing the prayers makes us see a change in our world, makes saying the prayers infinitely more powerful. And yeah, that was his effort for Arya Nagarjuna to show us that. Okay. Let's take a break. Pause the recording. Pause recording. Zoom recording. Geshe-la says our death is the simultaneous wearing out of all the karmas that project this life. So he says, if you get upset seeing that new wrinkle or that new gray hair, multiply that upset by the number of things and people and beliefs that you're attached to, because the end of this life is all of those disappear. And if we're upset by, one little bit of indication that we're aging, then brace yourself for what an ordinary death would be like. And we know it enough that we suppress it. And we're able to go through life making our choices based on other things. And we just keep it in the background that we are inexorably, that's too big a word for me. We are on the conveyor belt to the end of this life in every moment. We're wearing it out from the instant of conception. The birth of a samsaric thing is the beginning of its end, they say. That one still throws me. And the process is reversible, which is the point of spiritual practice. Right? That whole process of losing everything is not in it from it. So the Lord of Death is unstoppable, means karma once ripened cannot be changed. No self-existent Lord of Death that is self-existently unstoppable, which is why the Lord of Death is unstoppable. Because it represents the wearing out of all those seeds of life. So reason number 2 is our life leaks away continually. My death is certain. Why? Because the Lord of Death is unstoppable, number one. Because my life is flowing away moment by moment. I'm using up my life moment by moment. Not like we have a choice here, right? In the sense that we can't say just time out. I'm going to go on vacation and stop using up my life for a little while. Thank you very much. It's happening with every perception, with every projection. That projection includes our me, our this life, and we've just burnt 65 of them off. And 65 more. It's a wonder we've lasted as long as we have. We cannot add extra time. So reason number 2 is our life is leaking away continually and we cannot add extra time. So even when we say with the Diamond Way practices, you can transform the whole mess, it's not that we're adding time to this life. It's that we're changing our seeds that change our mind and winds such that the perception of me and my existence changes dramatically. My guess is you don't even talk about me and my life anymore, because it's not separated by these different episodes anymore. This life, that life, next life. So Geshe-la said, our life is leaking away and there's no way to add time. And it does not matter how wealthy you are, how famous you are, how smart you are, how gifted you are. None of those factors can be called upon to add time to life. We can use all of those factors, right, to plant great seeds for future. The seeds that we plant for long lives is giving life, protecting life, supporting life, helping life. And we can be experts at protecting life and supporting life and avoiding harming life as seeds that we're planting that will ripen in the future. And if we have a little bit of wisdom, that little bit of wisdom is going to grow with them. But those seeds aren't going to add time to the seeds of this life that are wearing out. It does not mean to not take care of our bodies and our situations, bless you. Because if what we do to take care of these bodies does in fact help our body be stronger, healthier, we have a more reliable tool to use to help others or to use for our practice. So the conclusion of we can't add time and nothing we do adds time does not mean, okay, just, eat chocolate, drink alcohol, just go ahead and use up your time and have fun. Right? We could come to that conclusion, but then we are very unlikely to have future situations where we are ripening the seeds for the secret, for the method of changing the whole system. So thinking about this one, I can't add time. Again, intellectually, we get it. But deep in our heart, I don't know, I still think, well, like I have these conversations with myself. If I were diagnosed with cancer, would I take treatment or would I not take treatment? And of course, I can't answer that, but I can argue with myself, right? Based on what I've seen, what I know. And, my conclusion is different on different days. But it's because my thinking is that, wow, the treatment could add time to my life. And if I say, well, no treatment can add time to my life, so why should I bother doing any of it? That's not right either. Because maybe that particular treatment would not actually ripen as what was necessary to clear that cancer, right? We get a glimpse of what a pain in the butt it is to not be omniscient. If we were omniscient, we'd know that treatment, not that one, and, right, liberate earthworms, and we would just do it, and we'd get that result. But I don't know about you, but I'm not omniscient yet. So I have to just guess, it seems like, or do other things. So we have a tendency with these rationalizations to go, yeah, I believe it. And that's not the point. The point is pretend you don't believe it, or really find the part of you that doesn't believe it and investigate, right? And really look at our own behavior to see, it's like, is my day-to-day living indicating that I understand that I am like one day older, one day closer to dead today. And even though I was preparing this class for you, it still just sort of went over my head as I was doing what I was doing the rest of the day. So work with these ideas, please. The third reason for investigating my life is certain is that they say we'll die without ever having had enough time to practice the Dharma. We'll die without ever having had enough time to practice the Dharma. And it seems funny that that comes up here. But if we take an honest look at ourselves, do we feel like we have enough time to do anything? No. It's like we're always somehow, I can't finish this, I can't do all that, there's just not enough time in the day. And yet, how much of it, honestly, do we waste? So we have this schizophrenic kind of idea. It's like, oh, I have so much to do. And then it's like, yeah, but I'm gonna do another jigsaw puzzle, right? Because it helps my focus, it helps my mind. No, really, I'm just avoiding doing the stuff I know I needed to do. And it, like, little teeny things, great big things, we do it. It's just some kind of weird habit. And it's insightful to figure out what drives that habit. Is it avoidance? Is it fear of failure? Is it fear of success? Is it like deep? There's like probably 3 wrong beliefs we have about our own capacity that keeps us in this cycle of, oh, I have so much to do, I can't ever get it done. And then, we watch movies instead of just doing it. Right? So I'm not criticizing us, we all do it. But this practice is about digging a little deeper. Digging a little deeper. But they specifically say we'll die without having had enough time to spend on our Dharma practice. And how much time does it take to spend on our Dharma practice, on our spiritual life? Like when we first start on a spiritual life, it just seems so impossible to find that 10 minutes to meditate. And then you start with the 5 minutes and add a minute every week. And a year later, it's like, you know, my hour is dedicated to that, and your life adjusted such that now it's built in. Most days, not always, I have to admit. You know, all of our routines are like that. They've been built up through time and experiences of what worked and what didn't work. And then we stay with what worked 10 years ago. And somehow it's not working so well now, but we're still stuck in that belief it worked 10 years ago. So it's still working, even if it's not working, right? We just can't break out of that habit pattern, many of us. So what would it take? Geshe-la, he says we need to be able to train in deep meditation. And we've heard us say it before, it takes an hour of deep meditation daily in order to be able to sustain the kind of focused attention that's necessary for 20 minutes of direct perception of emptiness. So an hour a day, which really translates into about an hour and a half, because it takes 10-15 minutes to do your preliminaries and 5 or 10 minutes to do your ending session. And the meditation time is the hour he's talking about. We need to be able to study, and he says a lot, hours and hours of hearing the pen thing over and over again, studying emptiness and karma, and how compassion is necessary within those two, in order to plant the seeds with enough numbers and enough understanding to grow into wisdom seeds. So hours and hours of formal classes, study time, contemplation time, which is different than meditation, reasoning time, hashing it out time, Tusomgom it's called. Yeah, it's study, contemplate, and meditate. And then he added to do retreats, to spend in intense time, immersion time into the Dharma. Like being at Diamond Mountain for the Lamrim or the Medicine Buddha. It's just like every moment of your day is focused in some way on the Dharma, and everybody there is doing the same thing, just about. And, 10 days is about enough, isn't it? We want more when we leave. And that's a good thing. It's like, no, 10 days is not enough. But if you had stayed 2 weeks or 3 weeks, it would be starting to get to be a strain, and you don't want to leave with a bad taste in your mouth. So we cut them off earlier. But then to do your own retreat, when I do those classes, I don't cross off everything else from my agenda and do the 4 sessions a day. I just listen to the classes and I go on about my life, I confess. But we could use those LUMRIMs done online as an immersion retreat ourselves, right? Where you just spend the whole day reviewing what you just learned, using the practice, meditating. We could do immersion retreats in that way. And then as we get more in tune or more sophisticated, we do our own solitary retreat, and you get trained to do that. And that's really immersion, because in those retreats, you're taught how to do the 4 sessions a day that are long sessions, and you're really not doing anything but Dharma, except, when you're eating and going to the toilet, and even that can be part of it. So, we think, oh, there's no way I'll be able to do retreats like that until I'm old enough to retire. But Geshe-la said, just start to have the idea that that would be a valuable component of life, a way of serving the beings in your world by taking yourself out of it for a certain period of time on a regular basis, minimum twice a year. And first having that as an idea starts to grow. If you find there are other situations where you can support somebody in being able to do that, those seeds will grow. And this death meditation practice will help you see what's in your life that is outmoded, outneeded, right? Because all of those things are things that are making it not possible for you to build those retreats into life. And you'll see little by little what can be changed, what can be pulled away, what can be let go of, that will adjust your living circumstance such that it won't seem so impossible to get away for 2, 3, 4 weeks twice a year. Right? Don't decide you're going to do it and push everybody in your life out of life in order to do these 2 retreats. You've got obligations. But have this higher idea in mind that I'll be able to meet my obligations and do these retreats, because that's how I meet my obligations in a higher way. Just start thinking about it. Okay, good timing. Let's get refreshed again, and I will guide you through the meditation preliminaries more slowly than before, and we'll do this second section of the death awareness meditation for the rest of class. It'll take a half an hour. I promise not to go past time. So get yourself refreshed. If you need to stand up and do some jumping jacks or something. Okay, this is back. Okay, so settle your body in, get comfortable in your meditation position, whatever it is right this moment. Feel that body strong against your cushion. That earth energy holding you. And feel your inner body light and rising, not rising off your cushion, but lifting, uplifting. So you feel very nicely balanced between heaven and earth. And bring your attention to your breath at your nostrils. Exhaling. Inhaling. Fascinated with those sensations. Our first step is in recalling our refuge. Think first of things that you use that are worldly. From this expectation that they will help you. And recognize sometimes they do what they're supposed to do and sometimes they don't. And so they really are not sources of refuge. And so recall what is. Understanding emptiness and karma. Protects us by helping us make our choices. How will making wiser choices help us, protect us? Is there anything else that can? Next, grow your bodhicitta. What would it be like to emanate those zillion bodies, helping all beings. Helping them all gain their renunciation, their refuge, their bodhicitta. Recall your own precious holy guide there with you. See how happy they are with you. Recall who they are for you. That being who is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom. Mentally bow down to them. Admire them. Feel your aspiration to become like them. And make them an offering. Something from your practice where you went out of your way to be kind. Because of your bodhicitta. Then confess some negativity, something specific and something recent. See what a karmic mistake it was. Tell them. Tell them of your regret. Tell them of your determination to not repeat it specifically. And offer this class and this meditation as your antidote. And then know then that by the end of class, that seed is damaged. And then rejoice in the goodness of damaging that seed. Rejoice in some other kindness that you've done. Rejoice in some kindness you saw someone else do. Ask that holy being to continue to teach you both formal teachings and everyday teachings. Ask for the long and healthy life of all your teachers, all your spiritual guides, all those who help you on your path. And then see yourself standing at that front door of that beautiful building, golden yellow door. You recall that to get there, you danced through that meadow. Having got there by way of shooting past the gauntlet of scary guys. Having gotten there by coming across the moat on the bridge, divesting of things and relationships and beliefs that no longer serve you. Having gotten there by way of your awakening renunciation at the distress of samsara. So put your hand on the doorknob. And as you do, you see like letters show up on the door that says, "My death is certain." Is there some hesitancy to open this door? If so, admit it to yourself and decide, I'm going to go through anyway. Or not, it's up to you. If you decide, then turn the doorknob. The door swings open easily. It's darkish inside. You step in. It's cool. And as your eyes adjust, you see yourself in this circular room. And just off to your right, chained to the wall, is this huge, vicious, angry, dog-like beast, straining at its tether to get at you. You're just outside of its reach. And you know if this beast gets free and gets a hold of you, it will rip you to shreds and nothing can stop it. When karma for life wears out, nothing can help us. Now turn to the center of the room. You see there a big hourglass standing on a little round table. Look at the sand. How much has flowed from top to bottom? For me, it's a whole lot more than when I first learned this practice. Our impulse is to go turn the hourglass over. So we go to it and try, and we find it's affixed to the table, and the table is affixed to the floor. There's nothing we can do to slow that flow of the sand down, to stop it, to add more sand to the top. We can't get into it. This represents the reasoning. We can't add time to our life. We're using it up moment by moment. Even while we sleep, eat, rest, meditate. Look back at the snarling beast. The Lord of Death is unstoppable. Look at the hourglass. My life is flowing by. I can't add time. Then you look up past the hourglass. There's a hallway going off the back of the circular room. And suddenly you're compelled, in that hallway, you're running, compelled to run through this long corridor. And along the walls of the corridor are mounted these beautiful lighted paintings of teachings and teachers that you've experienced in this lifetime's past. You want to stop and think about them and appreciate them, but this compelled factor pushes you past them. Past one, past the next, past the next. In our lives, there's never enough time to study and practice. Even with spiritual teachings, they come one after the other. If we stop to assimilate one, we miss 6 more. It seems there's never enough time. And our running stops short at a beautiful green door. And at that green door, turn back and look. So far, we've had 6 parts of this practice. Coming out of the forest, burdened with stuff, fighting for food at the table, represents what happens if we never think about our death. Pulling out of that, crossing the bridge, throwing stuff overboard is our renunciation. The benefits of thinking about getting used to dying, getting used to death. the gauntlet of scary guys, the wrong kind of death meditation that we're not going to do, and dancing through the meadow, the kind of death awareness we'll cultivate that leaves us light and unencumbered. Reaching that golden yellow door of the actual death practice, the first principle, my death is certain. This round room with the corridor, and in that round room is that vicious beast. The Lord of Death is unstoppable. And the hourglass, the time of my life is continuously passing away. And the corridor of teachings, there's never enough time to study and practice. It's feeling a bit desperate at this point. Allow yourself to stay in that discomfort. Recognize that so many beings never even get the chance to recognize the situation that they're in. And so recognize that recognizing this discomfort is a step forward on the growth of your wisdom. And so allow that scene to fade away and see instead before you that precious holy guide. Recall too that being that you wanted to be able to help at the beginning of class. Recognize that we have learned something that we will use sooner or later to help them in that deep and ultimate way. And that's an extraordinary goodness. So please be happy with yourself. And think of this goodness like a beautiful glowing gemstone that you can hold in your hands. Inside of it is the end of death for every being. Gaze again at that precious holy guide. Feel your gratitude for their guidance. Ask them to please stay close, to continue to inspire you and help you. And then offer them this gemstone of goodness. See them accept it and bless it. And they carry it with them right back into your heart. See them there, feel them there. That love, that compassion, that wisdom, shining like a tiny light deep within you. It feels so good, we want to keep it forever. And so we know to share it. And by having that thought, that light glows ever brighter, filling the inside of your body. And shining forth from you by the power of the goodness that we've just done. May all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. So shine a beam of that light from your precious guide in your heart to that one person. See it fill them. Shine more beams of light to everyone you love. See it filling them. Shine countless beams of light to countless suffering beings. See them all filled with this light, the light of the wisdom of kindness. And may it be so. All right. When you're ready, open your eyes, stomp your feet a little bit to get yourself grounded. And we have a couple of minutes. Are there questions or things needing clarification? So your job between now and Sunday is to work on these stages. So maybe you're still at going over the moat, throwing stuff off. Just add in your review these other pieces so they're familiar. Go to the one that you like, I don't think I really believe that. Or what would that be like to really live with that understanding, right? The one that catches your interest, spend your time investigating. Okay. So there's no right or wrong way to do it. The wrong way is to just not do it at all. But just explore. Okay. Good. All right then. Thank you very much. I will see you on Sunday. Right, this is Thursday. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you,
Yes.
teacher.
Have a great weekend. I love you. Bye-bye. Oh, I gotta end this.
Please stay. Thank you for teaching.
Thank you.